Or was it? Hi, I'm Travis. This is Curious Tangents. Who owns America? If you took all the land of the 100 largest land-owning families in America and put them together, you would end up with a landmass the size of Florida. Something incredibly undesirable that you should never do. If you own a home, you probably feel like you own the land that it sits on. Legally speaking, you do. You're responsible to cut the grass, you pay taxes on it, and you can choose what is done with it, for the most part. If you were to say, choose to commit murder on your land, you would be subject to the law of the land, the United States. Most of us can agree that that is a good thing. The United States is a sovereign nation, which means that it can do what it pleases with the land that it owns, whereas you are merely the owner of another being's sovereign land. This division between ownership and sovereignty can be seen in a lot of things. For instance, your own body. You probably feel like you own your body, like you're in complete control. And you should feel that way. If I were to throw an awful image on the screen and play a loud noise, which I'm not going to do because I'm not a terrible person, then your body would react by releasing adrenaline, speeding up your heartbeat and sending your mind into a state of fight or flight, if only for a split second. That reaction is nothing that you decided upon, it's something that your body does naturally. The easiest way to demonstrate this, and I'm sorry to do this, you are now breathing manually. The Roman philosopher and thinker Seneca once said these men own their riches the same way they own a fever. Ownership of anything, but especially of property, is a uniquely human endeavor. Animals have territory, yes, but I think we can all agree that that gorilla doesn't own the forest. The lines on a map or a globe represent the borders of nation-states, but nation-states themselves are more accurately defined by the people who live there. It could be a religion, a race, a creed, or a political ideology. But what's more powerful than any of those creeds is a shared narrative. Haruki Murakami, the author of 1Q84, once wrote that history is the shared narrative that either tears us apart or binds us together. A group of people who can agree on at least the basics of what individual rights should be and who should have those rights can begin to create a cultural narrative. So America was established in 1776. Previous to this, it was a colony of Britain. Previous to this, it was what some philosophers called a state of nature. The state of nature was a philosophical idea championed by people like John Locke and Jean-Jacques Rousseau and Thomas Hobbes, who would go on to inspire the Declaration of Independence and the French Revolution. In fact, John Locke's quote, "life, liberty, and a state," would go on to influence Thomas Jefferson's "life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness," which was a lot more marketable, and why you should know your audience, especially when you are writing a political doctrine. So in this idea of the state of nature, it basically proposes that previous to governments existing in an unspecified time in the past, it was essentially every man against every man, and presumably women. It's built upon the idea that humans are solitary creatures. In fact, Locke is quoted as saying, "In the state of nature, there is a war consisting of every man against every other man." Now, if you've ever studied anthropology, archaeology, psychology, or history, or, I don't know, just interacted with another human being, you probably know that that's false. Humans are social animals. So social, in fact, that prolonged solitude is worse for your health than obesity. In fact, humans have created the most complex social network in history. No, not Facebook. I mean society. Cities and countries and organizations and institutions. Anyway, this idea of a state of nature denied ownership to Native Americans who didn't have formal governments. The acceptance of a state of nature, despite how contrived, despite how illegitimate it was, meant that the natives who lived here didn't own any of the land. For the majority of human history, we were primarily nomadic, which means that there was no private property then. The land was just the land. Even the possessions that we find today as artifacts like hand axes were thought to have been communal. The idea of ownership isn't very old at all, only becoming popular after the 1600s. In fact, all ownership really is, especially in regards to land, is other people agreeing that something is yours. Similarly, the only real qualification of a country being legitimate is other countries agreeing that that country is a country. The absolute pinnacle of circular reasoning. America is a democracy run by the people for the people. Kind of. That slogan describes a direct democracy. America is a representative democracy. You vote for elected officials, those elected officials then vote on different issues and policies, at least on a federal level. Athens is usually cited as the only true direct democracy, but in reality Athens was not a democracy at all. Given that most of the population could not vote at any point in its lifetime, it was much closer to an oligarchy than a democracy. Interestingly though, Switzerland actually is a direct democracy right now. So in answering the question, who owns America, it's probably not who owns the most land or who lives in a civil society versus a state of nature. And hopefully that definition is an inclusive we the people. And thank you for watching. Hey, so if you like this video and share and subscribe. And thank you for watching.